So now that we have the ability to throw a knife like this, where we can jump and throw knives in both directions, well, then now we need to make sure that it's the actual animation that throws these knives, so that we can't spam them just like this. Because right now we can just keep spamming knives and kill everything, and that's not the point. We would like to be able to throw one knife per animation, so that the animation actually controls how many knives we are able to throw. So every time the animation runs, we can throw a new knife. So to do this, we'll have to go to the player script, and in here we'll have to add some functionality to the throw knife. First of all, we'll have to say if we are not on the ground and value equals 1. I'm going to explain you in a second. Or if we are on ground and value equals 0. Okay, so the thing is that we want to use as few functions as possible. So instead of making a knife throw function for being in the air and for being on the ground, we use the same function with a parameter. So if we put in 1, then we are in the air, and if we put in 0, then we are on the ground. So we can take this functionality and move in here. So when we call throw knife and indicate that we have a 0, well, then it's going to run this animation. Or if we are not on the ground and we indicate with a 1, well, then we can throw the animation, throw the knife here. And this will make sense in a second, because we need to make the animation run this function, and the function in the air is going to make sure that it only throws one knife. If we didn't have this check here, we will throw 2 knives, one for the ground and one from the air, every time we run this animation, because we have 2 animation layers and both animation layers run at the same time. So if we're on the ground, the air layer is running in the background, so when we throw a knife, the air layer will also trigger the throw animation. So that means we'll throw 2 knives on the ground, and when we're in the air, the ground layer is running in the background, so when we throw a knife, the ground throw animation will also throw a knife. So we will get 2 knives in the air. So to prevent this, we put up this if statement here, so that we only throw one knife per per layer, or not per layer, but one knife at a time. Okay, let's jump to our Unity editor here, and here we'll have to make sure that we throw the knife from the animation. Actually, we need to go to our function here in the handle input, and we'll have to remove the throw knife, so that we don't throw the knife here anymore, because now the trigger throw is going to enable our animation, and this animation is going to trigger and throw our knife. So to do this, we'll have to go to our window, and we have to click on the window called animation, not animator, but animation. And this animation here can trigger some different events. So we're going to add an animation event. So when we are at a specific point in our animation, then we're going to throw a knife. So if we select the player, you'll notice that this one gets filled up, and we can play the animation and view it on the player here, even though we're not playing the game. So if I stop playing here, I can also select something else, for example, throw. And if I play this, you'll see that he starts throwing knives now, just like this. So we need to pick a point in this animation where it makes sense to instantiate the knife and throw it in the direction he's facing. So to do this, we can find somewhere in the animation, maybe here, just after 2, where you can see he has let go of the knife. He has the knife in his hand here, but here he let go. So it makes sense to throw a knife here. So to throw a knife in this animation here, we'll have to click on the little plus here to the far right, and that one says add event if you read that here. If you click here, we added an event, and this event can trigger some code on the player. And the code that it needs to trigger is our throw knife animation, throw knife function. So you can see here we have this throw knife function, and if we're on the ground, here we have to give it 0 to make sure that we can throw a knife. So we have to double click on the event. No function selected, we have to select the function, and the function we need to select is throw knife. And we need to indicate what parameter we give in, and we are going to give it 0 for on the ground, because as you can see here, this is the ground throw, that's the throw animation. So when we've done that, if I could, there we go. So when we've done that, we can also do the same for the throw in the air, because so we have to select the amount of animations here, and we have to select jump throw. And when we have selected that, we'll have to find a place where it makes sense to throw it. And usually we should throw it at the same time, because both animations has the same length, and they should trigger the knife throw at the same point. So we can actually leave it here at between 0 and 3. Click on the little plus to add an event, and double click on it and select a throw animation. And then instead of 0 here, we give it 1. So now we have given it 1, which means that this one is triggered with the air animation. So if we close this down and we run the game now, let's try to run it, and throw a knife. Now you'll see that he actually throws a knife when he is on the ground here, and when he's done throwing the animation. The same goes for in the air, as you can see here. So now we actually allowed our animation to trigger the knife throw here. And it's very important that you trigger the knife throw at the same point in both animations, because else you might be able to throw double knives sometimes. If you throw a knife earlier in the air layer and later in the ground, well, then he's maybe going to throw the air knife here, and then when he lands, he's going to throw the ground knife, because it switches to the ground animation. But try to have it at the same point. So one more thing. You can see right now it looks like he's throwing the knife from his armpit, as you can see here. And we would like to throw it from his hand instead. So we already have a nice throw animation here, but we also want to look a little better when he let go of the knife, then he should throw it from his hand. So to do that, we can actually add to the player another point here. So right click on the player and click to the object. Now let's just make it empty actually. Click create, click empty, and then call it knife position, knife pose. And then move it underneath the player here. So the knife position is the position where the player's knife is will be thrown from. So basically you can take this and move it up to the player, and move it a little out from his hand, and maybe we can actually we can just test trial and error here. So just place it around here in front of the player. And now we need to use this knife position for instantiating the player's knife. So go to the player, and then we need to go to, in the top here, we'll have to find, about here, have to make a private transform and call it knife position. And we need to serialize this field. And when you have serialized the field, you'll have to go to the place where you throw a knife, the knife throw function here. And then we have to say, instead of transform the position, we will throw it at knife position. And the same goes for the other statement down here. Dot position, knife post dot position. There we go. So now we have a knife position to throw it from. So if we save this and jump back into the game, we need to assign it. So click on the player, and then we have to find the, let's see if we can find it. Knife position is up here. So you take the knife and put it down from the underneath the player, drag it from under the player and into this position here. And then we try to run the game. Try to see. Now you can see it looks more like it's throwing it from his hand now actually. It looks actually very good. Right now it looks like he let go of the knife and it goes in the direction he's facing. So that's basically it for the knife throwing part. I think I'm going to wrap this video up here, and in the next video, the next part of the series, when I get to it, I will try to add some enemies with some AI. They can walk back and forth and maybe attack the player, and then later we can try to attack these enemies and kill them maybe. So thank you for watching this part, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter, like my Facebook page, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it already, because it helps me a lot to get a lot of subscribers, because it makes my channel more popular, and it's makes people go and watch my movies. So please subscribe if you haven't done it. And if you want to support me and you like my movies and you want to do a little more, then you can either download this project from the link on the screen, or you can also go to the Patreon page and support me there. If you support me on Patreon, then you get some different perks, and you can see on the Patreon page what you can get. For example, you can get all my project, private help with your projects. You can get early releases on all my videos. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you'll continue with this series or any of my other tutorials.